Good evening, everybody. We have a special guest here today. This is Father Tom's dear friend, Father Carl Arico from Contemplative Outreach. And I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for Father Carl, who is an expert on centering prayer, to talk to us a little bit about it. And so I'm going to ask you, Father Carl, some questions that I think may be of interest to our community, and you can just run with it, okay?
Let's do it.
So why don't we start, if you could just tell us a little bit about your role in Contemplative Outreach and what Contemplative Outreach is, and then we'll move into centering prayer.
Well, Father Thomas Keating was a good friend of mine. He's deceased. He died in 2019. And he invited me to go on a special retreat in the year of 1983, where he wanted to take a few of us together and see if Christians could enter into silence and consent to God's presence in the same way that Easter meditators would do it. And so we went on this retreat and we found, yes, it can happen. It can work. Because Jesus, in the scripture says, when you pray, go to your inner room, close the door, pray to your Father in secret, and your Father in secret will reward you. And so the foundation is there. And it also goes on to say, do not be like the pagans, because they multiply their words that they're going to be heard. Your Father in heaven already knows what you need. So that set the stage. And so when Father Thomas wanted to put together some sort of organization to support people who want to pray in that way, or at least want to enter into the silence, Contemplative Outreach came about in 1984 and is going strong.
So let me ask you another question, because it's one that I see online quite a bit, where people ask, well, is it really Catholic? It's sort of a dangerous thing. It's bringing in the Eastern religions. And doesn't the Catholic tradition, have a whole history of Christian mystics in our history as a church?
Right. Well, the great fear here was sort of wiped away, I believe, as far as officially looking at it by Vatican II, who said that God works in all religions. Anyone who's seeking to love God in a special way is in a deep relationship with God. And they can use their ways, their methods, to come to that. But you're already there, so it's kind of like to wake up to the fact that this is already happening inside of us. Because God, what is prayer? Prayer is a relationship, and God started the relationship, and God is there first. Even if you have an idea to want to pray, God's already planted that. It wasn't your idea.
So then can you tell our community here, what is the difference between, traditional praying, so maybe prayers of intention, the prayers that we were brought up learning,
right,
where we're sort of talking to God? What's the difference between that and centering prayer, and how would they complement one another?
Well, let me put it this way. Prayer is a dance. And when you enter into a dance, you enter into a dance in many different ways. So when you first learn to dance, what happens, you spend all your time spent looking at your feet. Then once you got your feet straight, then you begin to notice you have a body. And after you get your body straight, then you notice you have a rhythm. And all of a sudden, at the end, you notice you got someone in your arms. So prayer has different levels to it. And prayer being relationship has these different levels, so that you have the prayers that you speak from your voice, your vocal prayers that you read, and it comes out of here. Then we have our prayers where we not only pray our prayers, but we also put our mind into it. We pay attention to our prayers being there. Then we have our prayers where the heart gets involved, that you begin to realize that you want to love and do more than say words or say the words right. You want to enter into a loving relationship with someone. And then you have the prayer really where you simply rest with this God that you love very much. So it's like a person on the dance floor. You're just watching your steps. That's one level. You're watching how your body's moving. That's another level. You're watching all of a sudden the rhythm that you're getting in the back of your mind of how this music is going. That's another. And then all of a sudden, whoa! Look who's in my arms. Who was already there all the time. You don't.
But you're not
listen.
necessarily aware of it.
God can't spend time, bouncing in and out of each one of us. Okay, Carl's now at prayer. Okay, I'm over with Carl, but you're not with Barbara. Oh, okay. Oh, I have to go over to Barbara. He is there in all of us in all our prayers if we're raising our minds and hearts to God. That's the way I see it.
So, for anybody that may have said to themselves, well, I'd really like to try centering prayer, but I don't really know how to do it. I don't think I can be that still. I don't think I can stop my thoughts. How do you help them? How do you help people to begin? Can you just describe the practice and what it involves?
Well, it's a 4-step dance. And the first step that you need to learn is, what are your intentions? My father used to always say that to all my sister's boyfriends. Eventually, he would get them and say, what are your intentions of being in this relationship with my daughter? Okay. So the first step is the intention. To consent to God's presence and action in your life. It's a prayer of consent.
And so what does that mean, really, to consent to God's presence in your life?
It means in a certain sense that I want to be fully aware of the fact that in everything I do, God is present in that. Anyway, but now I want to wake up to the fact that I want to honor the fact that God is present. God's presence in my gestures here, God's present in you, God's present in me. But if I don't make that an awareness of myself, I could go on my whole life not realizing that God is present in everything. So it's like I'm going to take my Lord for better, for worse, richer, for poorer, sickness and health, into eternity, and I really mean it.
So it's like saying I do.
It's saying I do.
Saying I do. So the first step is consent.
Consenting and choosing a wedding ring. And the wedding ring really is a sacred word or a symbol that focuses you again that this is your intention. So, like for myself, my word has been for years, Abba. Back in 1973 when I first started, it was Abba, and it's always Abba. I had no reason to change it because the word doesn't do it, it's the intention that does it, So if every time I renew my relationship and I have to get a new wedding ring, that's ridiculous. This wedding ring, if it stands for what it stands for, will be my consent. So every time I say my word, it's like pointing to my wedding ring. The second step is we just sit comfortably with our eyes closed and ever so gently repeat our little word.
Okay.
Like is Abba. Now, I don't say it all the time, because the third guideline is I only say it when all of a sudden I get engaged with a lot of thoughts and ideas that are more my agenda than God's. So when I'm going fine, I might all of a sudden be aware that there's a sound outside, or being aware really that I'm having a thought. But until I grab it and hold on to it, I just let it come and let it go. Because if you had no thoughts, you'd be brain dead. Now, I've been accused of that, but I will deny that that's possible. But you'd be brain dead. So it's always firing. It's almost like the electricity in your house. Just because you don't have it plugged in, electricity is right there, ready to go. Ready to go.
So the idea then, as I've always understood it, is it's not to try to deny or stop your thoughts. It's an idea of not attaching to them, not following them, not going from thought A to B to C, and that's where the sacred word comes in.
That comes in to just remind you again, don't go down that road. But the point is, it's not about not going down that road. You let them come, you let them go. There always will be thoughts. Now, the interesting thing is, according to my perception, is that it is like a freight train, Every thought that you let go is carrying some stuff out of your being. loosening something up inside of you. So you don't get angry, and you don't have to know what that might be. But it could be nothing, but it could be something profound that you don't realize later on. But you don't look for that in a prayer. I mean, when you're with someone that you love, okay, you're not worrying about whether the paint is right at that particular moment. You're focusing on the person that you're talking to.
Right.
And there's nothing worse in a conversation, all of a sudden watching somebody you're supposed to be looking at is looking beyond to see what's going over there and not paying attention to you. You know, you feel like giving them a shot. You know, here I am. Did you miss me? So the third guideline is when you come not aware or notice, when you get engaged, ever so gently pray your sacred word, which for me was Abba, and let it come and let it go. But the fourth guideline is the most important. So many times people think because they follow Jesus, it's just a personal thing, that it's just me and God. It can't be just me and God. And so at the end of the prayer, what happens is we're invited when the 20 minutes is over. And the 20 minutes is a monastic tradition that seems through the centuries has said at least 20 minutes to get the prayer moving inside of you. I know people like to start at 5, maybe I'll go to 10. Well, you can, but if 4 years later you're still doing 5, trying to go to 10, you really haven't entered into the dance. But at the end of the prayer time, remain in silence for 2 or 3 minutes to allow the reservoir of silence to build up inside of you, so that when you leave the prayer chair or pillow, wherever, or kneeling, whatever you're doing, when you go out into the world, you're bringing something more than yourself. You're bringing the presence of God within you to what you do. In a Catholic terminology, you become Eucharist. You're carrying the presence of God more into daily life.
So, I'll just say to our community, I mean, you know me, you've heard from me often enough, that in my life when I started centering prayer, it was at a very challenging time. I was going through tremendous stress and anxiety. And honestly, my friend Annie said to me, you need to do this. And I did it basically because I didn't know what else to do. And I wasn't sure I could do it because I was so overwhelmed with thoughts and emotions, and my brain was so busy. But I committed to the discipline, and it was really hard at first. It's very like that. Like I started with the 5 minutes.
Right.
This isn't doing anything. And I just committed to the 20 minutes. And I'll say that it took me a good 6 weeks of every day for it to begin to feel comfortable, maybe is the word, or more comfortable. And it's not as though, and maybe you can just speak to this for a minute because I know we're almost out of time. It wasn't as though there was this somehow miraculous something that happened to me, but what I did notice was that over time, I became a little freer. I became a little stiller inside. And I began to trust this God within me. And gradually, I was able to move through this difficult time in my life and come out on the other side of it feeling that much closer to God, feeling that much more connected. Would you say that's a sort of common experience?
Well, one of the dangers is to make even worry what the experience is.
But that's hard because we are so results oriented.
Well, that's the dying to yourself. If you go into something anticipating it to do something, you've already objectified the prayer and you forgot the person of Christ that's working and dancing in your arms, okay? So all I say to that is that, as I read recently something, it's not, the journey of life is not to find a path, but to find the rhythm. And the rhythm of your daily routine begins to take on a life of its own that companions you in all that you do. It makes you more aware of the fact that you're consenting to God's presence. Is it easy? No. Is it freeing? Yes. Can it change a person's life? Yes, because it's person orientated, not rule, regulation, or behavior oriented.
Right.
I'm building a relationship with this God who will surprise me.
And God does.
Wonderfully. Thank God.
In closing, can you just tell us where, if people are interested, and I'm hoping you'll all be interested in pursuing this a little bit, basically with that goal of getting to know the God within you better. And where can people find resources?
I would
that will
say
be
go to
helpful?
Google. Always go to Google. And in Google, just type out Contemplative Outreach.
We'll post the link,
Yeah.
too. We'll post the link.
And honestly, everything is there. And you can even get an app to help you, in it. But if you can't, I'm sure you can talk a little more about
We
it
will,
and
for sure.
programs that are moving along.
All right, well, thank you, Father Carl.
Well, it's been my honor.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Here you are. Yes, it is.